Oh, diddly gosh, howdy do, ladies and gentlemen. My absolute apologies for being away. Kenji's world has been on the move. My gosh, it's been on the move more than I ever anticipated. So many things, so many pieces of information, so many components to juggle. It's not, and look, it's funny. Self limiting beliefs is an interesting one. Because self-limiting belief is stopping you from stepping into your power, your potential, a larger capacity than you see for yourself currently. And so, how to transition out of those mindsets and that mentality, a paradigm, how do you have revelation to move out into larger spectrums of life? Well, there's so many thoughts out there. Myself these days has just been to sit into, well, I think it was tied to a sense of ownership with the company that I'm working in. I partnered with friends, and this partnership, I think the way I came into it, because I wanted to just go business myself, I was going to do it, being Kenji, it's all going to be me. Wee, happy days. And I would figure it all out later, and I'd have 100% ownership. Whereas this way, I've come in partnership, and my friends already had existing structures that I could understand. I could believe it's coming from the same foundations as myself. But I could see that there was something I had to learn, I had to understand, encompass. And realistically, these people on the business journey were more advanced, and they had put a lot of things into play in situations and scenarios that I have not been in business. So there's definitely a place for me to not humble myself, but go back to that apprentice or student mindset, right? But not falling into it. This is the thing. This was the issue with me. I fell into the student mindset thinking that I am just a student and I have nothing to give, was a place that I fell into. And yeah, you can already hear what that sounds like, or what that feels like to live into for myself. It didn't make me feel the best, feel the most empowered. But it comes down to, well, for myself, what it came down to for me is how much of this am I going to own from what perspective, right? And realistically, if this company is, I'm most definitely a part owner in this business, but this business is not just this business. We are working from a larger portfolio model. So this is a business and a vehicle and a driver for a core product and service we are offering, but it's coming from a higher level. So it just took me to step up into this higher level, this higher octave of being and seeing, and how am I going to engage in, my business as an investor. It's our business, but most definitely there's a part of mine to own. So from that perspective, in my business, how am I going to own it? How can I articulate, or how can I pass information on to people that are going to come into the business, the teams that we're about to build? And how can we empower these people as quick as possible to be up to speed and be able to facilitate them and their genius zone or their expertise to the best capacity with minimal friction and minimal loss of time. So this is just me speaking out the process of what I'm going through to adopt and take ownership of my life. It's as above, so below, right? What does that mean for me, of how much ownership I've been taking? And there was the avenue of ownership I wanted to take, right? This is how I wanted to start my own business, my own channel, my everything was going to go into this. I needed it. I needed to have that ownership. And this other pathway was kind of freaking me out. It's scaring me a little bit. Am I really getting what I want? But it's shifting perspectives, right? And shifting perspectives, but also opening the aperture of your time frame, or where are you in what phase of your life? Because I can see that I'm going into something a lot larger, right, from the beginning, and it's going to become, I believe, something bigger than potentially what I would have created myself. I'm not going to rule myself out that I wouldn't have created a monster myself. Not to say I want to create a monster, but something very large and successful. I wholeheartedly believe I most definitely would have hit success in my own right and created teams and got people to be part of my vision and my journey. But, through consideration, I made a decision to go this pathway. And yes, some things aren't quote exactly as I wanted in terms of how I would feel at a certain point in the phase, but that suffering is only coming from I guess a misconceptualization of what this phase is to what macro picture. They're all just paradigm. Well, I don't want to always be using the word paradigm. It's fractals. It's phases within phases within phases, right? Where is this phase? It's being able to see myself here and know that this is the part of that journey to the next step, to greater phases, and to not get too attached to the current situation and outcome as an ultimatum of how I'm going to feel later on, right? It's how do we, and this is circling back into how do we place ourselves, or how do we understand ourselves for where we are? When you're younger, you don't really think about this, and I'm not saying everybody doesn't think about this. I didn't think about this. I just kind of fucking went balls out, balls to the wall, and did what the hell I wanted, and it's fine. I believe there's a lot of young children out there, young kids out there, they're really trying to understand this concept of where am I in what phase of my life, and what actions I take now are going to turn into how and what. But I'd say in the younger days, it is harder to see that because you just don't have as much life experience to look back onto, because you can look back onto your high school days, but unless you're a very introspective kid and really observant, which I believe there's a lot coming out, and I believe a lot just aren't as well. But I believe when you start to get a little bit older, or you start to have more experiences or perspectives, because when you're young, you could just be smashed with experiences and perspective as well. So it's helping me to see, and also how do we attain that calm in the storm? Does perspective help? The great question. Does perspective help? And how do we attain that perspective? How do we shift the aperture and the scope of vision that we are looking at ourselves in right now? And how do we pull out to a bigger frame where this moment is not an isolated incident, but a part of a sequence of events? Is it possible to look at it like that? And if we do look at it like that, what does that mean? Or what does that look like in the grand scheme of things? And what does that vision of looking like translate into a feeling? How does that feel when we adopt such a mentality and a way of being? And this is just me going through it. Everybody has their different ways of approaching things. But this is me rattling on about how can we find peace, right? How can we find peace in these moments that we are living in? How can we settle into the moments? There's always going to be an unknown. There's the known unknown and the unknown unknowns, right? I was talking to my friend about it. There's always an unknown. There will never be a point in your life that there is no unknown. And that unknown can be scary if it is a unknown that has an agenda beyond anything capable to understand. Perhaps. But this is where I continue to come back to, with a God-centered consciousness, that the unknown of all unknowns and unknown is most definitely unknown, that I have no idea that I could ever know such a thing. But if I could have faith in the Lord that that unknown is being taken care of by the Almighty, then what do I need to fear in this current state of my own life? And if I am, may it be merely a lack of faith in myself, a lack of faith in myself and my capabilities, and also my capabilities to understand and my capabilities to accept. Is that all it comes down to? My lack of faith. And how much I open my doors to... You don't want to just be completely open your channel so you're bombarded with too much unknown to a point where it's debilitating you, because that's not helpful. But how much do we open those channels and just learn to settle in it? Calm down, because once we settle down, we usually will recognize that yes, there's a plethora of things I can never understand, but the only thing I can do right now is, within my current understanding, make the first step. Left foot, right foot, left foot, right foot. How do we take those steps forward no matter what? And just look, what's the next step? Go here, what's the next step? Clarify judgment. Make sure discernment is clear. Am I coming from the right place? What are your practices? Kenji's World, every effing time comes back to you. What are your practices to come back How do you root yourself into this reality? So we are discerning as clear as we can. I say clear as we can because I know that I'm going to continue to evolve and grow to a place where my discernment and the way that I see and translate information in the world is going to improve. But here and now, this is what I got. This dumbass, Kenji, with his own ways of doing things, is all I got. And how am I articulating my next step as clear as possible? Can I have people that I can refine and clarify those steps with? Can I make sure that I'm putting it down on paper so I see it? Or I'm not saying that you gotta over articulate or overemphasize every single step. I'm just saying, what are those practices? I'm ask myself as well, are you continuing to do those practices? Because it's a daily thing. Like this morning I was waking up, I could feel a little bit my joints sore and this, and sometimes there's those micro freakouts. It's like, is it going to be like this forever? Am I going to continue to grow old with a fucked up body? But then I think, you know what? It's a daily grind. Every single day, you're just going to have to move it now. You're just going to make sure every single day, move your body, articulate your joints, get a mobility in there. Make sure, motion is lotion. Make sure you are getting that fluid, getting that blood flow. Because yes, if you don't do those things, yeah, you are just going to your grave quicker. And shit, that ain't a way I want to live. I want to get old and still be able to do things. Everybody's dream, but how you do that, just the question. What are your practices? Smack a dack time and time again. What are your practices? Yeah, and whilst you're young, man, hit it. Youth is wasted on the young. People got no idea what it means to have energy, vitality in a body that just kind of keeps on recovering. I'm not saying all young people are like this. I see a lot of fat people these days. I see too many scrawny people as well. It is just the way it is. But make sure you make the most of your life. And guess what? Right now is not always a curse if you look at it as an opportunity of growth. Like I said, I see some fat people. But those fat people might just look back or get to a point in their life, they're like, holy shit, this is not the best way to live my life. And I'm going to change my shit. And they turn around and revolutionize their life. It could be in their 40s. It could be in their 50s. They fucking make a huge shift, a huge revelation of what it means to live life. And bro, they'll be living large every single day from then on because they know it's what you make of it. So with that, you know how it is. Kenji's World, peace and one love. Be good to yourself. Be good to those around you. Give thanks. Praise the Lord. I'll talk to you next time.